All right. So I think I'm live on Facebook and I am going to be presenting. I somehow got ahead on my slides. I'm going to be presenting on how your hormonal and metabolic body type can be affecting your results in trying to improve your health or lose weight. Let's see if I am actually live. Yes, I am. All right, fantastic. All right, so if you are joining me live on Facebook, thank you for being here. I am not going to be able to keep track of any comments that you post in on Facebook, so I will read those later and get back to any questions or comments that you have. And if you join me in the Zoom room, then I will be able to see any comments that appear in the chat. And I will be opening up for comments as well at the end. So welcome to this masterclass on understanding your hormonal and metabolic body type. And I hope that you get some great information to help you tailor your efforts to actually get some results that you're looking for. So without knowing your body type, you are going to be continuing to waste time, money, and effort. And most of the time, people eventually give up, right? Because they're not seeing results and they're doing everything they can think of to get there. And it's completely frustrating. I want to end that frustration. So we're going to talk about mostly the first three body types. We're not going to go into the fourth one as much today, but men, if you are joining me, many of the things that we will talk about in these first three, many of the lifestyle and dietary modifications will apply to some of your struggles as well. So I would encourage you to go ahead and continue to listen. So we're going to first talk about the adrenal body type. So the adrenal, oh, sorry, I'm getting a notification here. So with the adrenal body type, the adrenals are little triangle-shaped glands that sit on top of the kidneys, and they are critical in the HPA axis. So the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. This is sort of the control center for our hormones and many other things in the body. So keep an eye on the waiting room here. And so with the adrenal body type, the HPA axis is sending lots of messages to the adrenals, in many cases, telling the adrenals to make cortisol, which is our main stress hormone. And so when the adrenals are making extra cortisol, this is going to be flowing throughout the body. Like some hormones are compartmentalized in terms of where they are active in the body, but cortisol tends to flow throughout the body. And so we've got the adrenals kicking out a lot more cortisol than maybe would be ideal for what's going on and what whether or not we need that cortisol. So we end up having this extra cortisol, and there are many places in the body, and specifically in this case, what we see is this abdominal belly fat. So there's a lot of extra cortisol receptors in the abdomen. And so when we've got the adrenals kicking out all this extra cortisol, and then you've got extra receptors in the abdomen, then we're going to see more fat stores showing up in the abdomen area. So people will often ask, like, why all of a sudden? Why is it just going right to my belly? I don't understand. Like, why isn't it just kind of widespread? Why is it just showing up in this area? And that is the main reason for that. So there are other signs besides just having this body type. Like you might look at the picture and be like, yes, that's exactly where I store my fat. And yeah, like that's me. But you could not necessarily have this picture, not have this exact visual body type. But if you have any of these other signs or symptoms, so if you have fatigue, insomnia, if you tend to have like really constantly flushed or red cheeks, having a lot of anxiety and feeling just sort of like always this low grade level of stress, weak or brittle bones are being diagnosed with osteoporosis or osteopenia, which is osteopenia is like the precursor to osteoporosis. If you have a moon or a rounder face, a pendulous abdomen, like you see in the picture there, if you have trouble with your skin, get a lot of acne or just have a lot of skin issues, having salt, cheese, chocolate, and sugar cravings later in the day, in the afternoon, needing coffee to wake up, like really struggling to wake up in the morning without caffeine, having dark circles around your eyes, inflammation in the or pain in your joints, your back, your neck, heel spurs, fibromyalgia, pitting edema. Pitting edema is when you've got like swelling in your extremities and you push in, like you can push in on your ankle or your lower calf and you see a pit stay there. You see your skin kind of depressed and you take your finger away and that depression stays there. That's pitting edema. Feeling out of breath when climbing stairs, having an overactive immune system, like a lot of allergies or chemical sensitivities, food intolerances, autoimmune conditions, a lot of moodiness and irritability, brain fog, or having a buffalo hump at the upper back, lower neck area, like a kind of looks kind of like a fatty, sort of like a fatty deposit. So these are all some indications that you have this sort of adrenal body type. So we want to look at how cortisol is regulated. So cortisol, again, being our stress hormone, it is an essential hormone in our body. So a lot of times cortisol gets a bad rap. We like blame it for everything because when it is dysregulated, we do have a lot of problems. So we really want to see cortisol rising and falling according to what you see here in this graph. So when we are about to wake up, so, you know, in between 7 and 9 a.m., we see sort of this spike in our cortisol levels. So this is the get up and go hormone. This is like signaling it's time to be awake. It's time to be alert. And so it's going to be rising between 6 and 9 a.m. And then you see it kind of gradually fall throughout the day. And it typically will start to kind of take a little bit of a less sharp fall in the late afternoon hours and then hit the lowest point usually around 10 or so at night, but it's getting low enough down, you know, around 9 p.m. To this, I think this is should be 9 p.m. right here, but it should be low enough that we can fall asleep. And around the same time that our cortisol is hitting its lowest point, then we have our melatonin starting to rise, as you see here in this golden yellow line. So this would be an ideal scenario for cortisol and melatonin. Melatonin, of course, being our sleep hormone. Oops. Okay, so here's another image of what it should look like. So again, we have our cortisol hitting its peak at about 9 a.m., gradually falling throughout the day, hitting its lowest point at around 9, and then gradually rising again in the morning to wake us up. And so what's happening when we have cortisol dysregulation, as is what is happening with the adrenal body type, is we have this this dysregulation, this inappropriate curve where now you've got cortisol higher in the evening time than it should be. And so a lot of people will find that they wake up between the hours of 2 and 4 a.m. because their cortisol is dysregulated. It's actually rising when it should be nice and low. And then in the middle of the day, you know, at 8 a.m., it's actually starting to fall. You're not able to get up. It's, you know, it's kind of hitting its lowest right here in these morning hours, staying low throughout the day. And then what do you know? In the evening, it's starting to rise and you're ending up with these higher levels in the middle of the night, which is just an absolute opposite of really what it should be doing. So lots of things can cause this. We can end up having cortisol dysregulation because we are dealing with a lot of stress and we have not found an effective way of managing the stress in our life. You know, various medications, we're medicated for so many things these days, and a lot of different medications can cause dysregulation. The foods we eat very much can cause this. Our blood sugar imbalances. So in my program, in my health transformation program, this is some of the main stuff that we work on. And I can't tell you how many people have told me that even just like in the first week of working with me, their sleep is improved, because it doesn't take very long to start balancing your blood sugar. When your blood sugar gets balanced, that's going to have a direct effect on your cortisol regulation. So I get super excited when I hear people tell me that they're already noticing improved sleep as a result of starting my program. So we're either running on stress hormones or we're running on sex hormones. So this is a graph that I got from my heart math training. So I'm a heart math practitioner. So as a heart math practitioner, I actually help people learn techniques to actually shift in their nervous system. So what this is showing, it's called the depletion to renewal graph. And so it's showing the different extremes from running on cortisol to running on DHEA. DHEA is a precursor sex hormone. So DHEA gets broken down into our male and female sex hormones, which are so essential for just everyday activities and everyday living. And then on the vertical axis, we have arousal. So we have basically kind of our nervous system arousal. So we're either in a state of high arousal or low arousal. So typically people, when they are coming to work with me for helping to balance their nervous system, most often what I see is that they are in this state of higher arousals and high stress. So they're stressed. They feel a lot of anxiety, anger, frustration. It's high arousal, high stress. And really what they want to get to is they want to get to a feeling of contentment, serenity, calm, and peace. What can happen over time is that when cortisol has been high for a long period of time, so you've been running on high stress, high anxiety, high levels of just constant like commitment, like never getting a break. Your adrenals at some point they start to tap out. Like they don't quit working altogether, but they get to a point where they're like, we've been pumping out all this cortisol and going, running on high speed for so long, like we're done. We're not going to work so hard anymore. We're not going to be kicking out so much cortisol, like we're tapped out. And so cortisol levels actually go from being too high to where you're in this heightened sort of sympathetic fight or flight side of your nervous system, and they flip and they get down to where they're too low. And so now instead of feeling anxiety, anger, or stress, you're feeling apathy, sadness, maybe depression. And so in the process, when you've got this high cortisol, it's actually stealing from your DHEA. It's called the cortisol steal, I think is what I've heard it called. And so when you're in this high state of stress, you are actually, like I said before, we're either running on sex hormones, which is where we should be, or we're running on stress hormones. So when your cortisol levels are high, it's stealing from the chemicals and the other hormones that can help produce DHEA. So you end up with low DHEA, and DHEA is like really essential for healthy longevity. Like a lot of people take DHEA supplements after a certain age just because it does have so much impact on our health. Okay. So anyway, so we can go from having too much cortisol and stealing from our DHEA, and then over time, we can end up actually having too low cortisol. And what ends up happening is we have very unstable and unpredictable energy levels. So, like I said earlier, when the cortisol graph is off, when we have dysregulation of our cortisol, we're going to feel tired during the day when we should feel awake and alert, right? We're at work, we should have normal levels of daytime cortisol helping us to stay awake and alert, and ideally balance blood sugar. But then we go to bed and all of a sudden our cortisol levels have flipped and now they're too high and we can't sleep. And so we end up having this just like very dysregulated, unpredictable, unstable energy. We need tons of coffee just to wake up. We might not even really feel awake until 11 or 12. We might feel like we have no idea from day to day how our energy levels are going to be. We might be like, I don't know how I'm going to feel on Saturday. I got invited to this party or this event, but I don't even know if I'm going to be able to make it because my energy levels are so unpredictable. That's an indication that something is off. That is not a normal way of being. So when we have this chronic chronic level of stress, it's impacting our ability to heal. Our body, when it's in that stressed out state, that fight or flight state, that high cortisol state, it is not in a place of healing. This is a breakdown state. This is not a state that we want to stay in long term. We do not heal when we're in this fight or flight state. And if you are joining me because weight is a concern for you and you have struggled with it for a long time, we cannot lose weight when we're in that stressed out state. Our body does not release stored energy when it's in fight or flight because it's preparing for survival. It doesn't know that what we're dealing with is emotional stress. It's just sees stress. And so the survival mechanism says, I better hold on to that fat tissue because who knows what's going to happen. And we don't want to starve to death. Okay, so what do you do if you are in this adrenal body type? If you either fit the image, like that, you definitely notice that you carry a lot of abdominal, extra abdominal weight, or you can check at least 5 of the things on that list. And this presentation will be available. I'll have a recording available. So if you need to see that list again, you'll be able to get that. And I can also just send it to you if you just comment or direct message me. So adrenal body type, what can we do? Okay, so with the adrenal body type, again, you're running on stress hormones. You're in that fight or flight state versus the rest and digest. So digestion isn't working optimally. And oftentimes that means you're going to have food intolerances and a lot of GI issues. Circadian rhythm is disrupted, as we talked about. You're going to have unstable, unpredictable energy. And the question to ask, and the question I ask everybody that I work with who has this adrenal body type or has these symptoms, are you doing too much? Because in many cases, people are doing too much. They're already stressed. They're already running on high cortisol. They've already got a million things that are going on that are keeping them in this fight or flight state. And then they're like, oh, but I got to get to the gym. Oh, and I got to like do this and do, a million things I got to get done. And, oh, I just got to work harder. I got to work harder if I'm going to lose any weight. It pains me. It pains me so much to see people on this cycle because they're running themselves absolutely ragged, trying to get results. And they're doing the exact opposite of what their body needs. Their body is in such a stressed out state. And the more they work, the more that the body is like going into the stress mode and pushing back. So it's, for many people, it feels very counterintuitive, but you need to back off on exercise. You need to give your body a break, whether you're in the high cortisol state or you've been in it so long that now you're in a low cortisol state and your adrenals aren't producing as much cortisol. Either way, you need to back off and give your body a break, which means that you need to be exercising at much lower intensities. So really, gentle, walking, yoga, gentle Pilates, easy, comfortable bike rides, getting outside. I just say, you know what, just get outside, get into nature, touch nature, move in a comfortable, non-vigorous way and get natural light. Exercising earlier in the day so that you're not going to potentially worsen your issues with sleep at night. Really important that you limit caffeine. Keep practice a deep, low breath practice. So really working on deep, slow, sorry, that's a typo, a deep, slow breath practice. So really when you practice deep, slow breathing, this is really helping to shift your nervous system into the parasympathetic. So just even like a couple of minutes of taking deep, slow belly breaths, really allowing your abdomen to rise and fall, taking like 5 seconds to inhale, 5 seconds to exhale. If that's hard for you, that means you need to practice it. It means you need to work on it. Avoid bright lights at night. I should be wearing my blue blockers right now, and I'm not. And typically I will wear them when I'm looking at screens after the sun goes down. Stick to a regular sleep schedule. Really important here. Really important not to be like, I'm going to stay up till midnight tonight, but maybe I'll try to go to bed by 10 tomorrow night. Or, I mean, it's really important that you stick to a regular sleep schedule so that you can get into a circadian rhythm. There's tons of research on this. Avoiding alcohol and nicotine, really important. Alcohol, people think alcohol makes them sleep better, but it actually is not helpful for sleep. It actually, most people don't get as good a quality of sleep, even if they think that they might be. And this is something that we can track using an Oura ring, which I wear. Taking naps. So taking naps again, because we really need to give our bodies more rest. In the adrenal body type, rest is so important to help to lower those cortisol levels. So taking naps, there's nothing wrong with this. Finding ways to laugh. Laughter itself shifts us into the parasympathetic nervous system and out of that sympathetic fight or flight. Dietary considerations, avoiding inflammatory foods. This is a hallmark of the program that I run. We talk all about what things what are the things that are inflammatory that people are often eating and thinking that they're fine. So really focusing on whole, unprocessed foods, wide varieties of fruits and vegetables, complex, whole, non-gluten grains. So this is a body type where if you're doing a lot of fasting, if you're really cutting your carbs and going low carb, that can actually be counterproductive. So that can actually signal your body to feel more stress. So this is a body type where we might not want to be intermittent fasting. We might not want to be going super low carb. That could be sending more stress signals. So you want to be focusing on complex, not processed. So you want to be eating like quinoa. You can do, rice. Oats have a really high glycemic index, so I don't recommend those on the whole, but they can be on a case-by-case basis, maybe okay in small quantities. But quinoa would be a reasonable one. Rice would be a reasonable one, brown or white rice, actually. Wide variety, you really want to be feeding your microbiome with a wide variety of plant-based foods. So getting all those colors in, which is going to help you get a lot of anti-inflammatory foods. When you get a lot of color, you're getting a lot of anti-inflammatories. Legumes. So legumes are a great complex carbohydrate that also give you some protein. Healthy fats from nuts, seeds, avocados, olives, trying to avoid a lot of excessive oils. Avoid fasting in this group. Pre and probiotics, so good probiotic to help make sure that your microbiome is healthy and has good variety, and make sure you're staying hydrated. Okay, so the next body type is the ovarian. So the ovarian body type, if we look at this picture, this is where it's the more kind of pear shape. So of course, having a pear shape in general is not a bad thing, like especially, women especially. So if women are in a pear shape, that's fairly normal, but it's when we are all of a sudden seeing an excessive amount of fat being stored in the hips and buttocks that we start to worry that there's some imbalance in hormones. So you might look at this picture and again be like, oh, that's totally me. Like I have this like thin waist, but then I just have like all this weight that's hanging out in my hips and my butt and my thighs. So this is an indication that there's some estrogen imbalance. I'm gonna have to let my cat out because he is starting to meow and it's not pleasant. All right, Clementine. That's what happens when you work from home. Okay. So the ovaries. So with this body type, again, we have estrogen imbalance. So the ovaries are responsible for producing estrogen. They also produce progesterone. They also produce testosterone, and our hormones are there's a very intricate balance. So we can't just look at estrogen alone. So we really need to be looking at the whole sort of complex interplay between all of the hormones. And I will say, like, there's testing that you can do to look at the complete hormone picture called the Dutch hormone test. And it really requires someone at a much higher pay grade than me to really be able to look at the complex interplay between all of our different hormones and subhormones and hormone metabolites. It's a very complex, scenario. But in this body type, we do have a pretty good idea that there is an imbalance with estrogen being a big part of this. Often some of the androgens are also at play and elevated. in this scenario. So the other things that we'll see when we have this ovarian or estrogen dominant body type will be a history of having a lot of PMS. So having a lot of symptomatic menstrual cycles, ovarian cysts are common, having a lot of cyclic issues. So if you're still menstruating, having like pretty extreme fatigue associated with your cycle, brain fog, pain in the knees, lower back pain, and lack of libido, all associated with your cycle. Having a lot of hot flashes and night sweats, vaginal dryness, again, cyclic acne, cyclic mood swings, excessive menstrual bleeding, cyclic constipation, and cyclic thinning of the hair. So a lot of these are related to your cycle, but many of them are also associated with being in perimenopause or menopause. Okay. So in this body type, often what we see as a root cause is insulin resistance. So insulin resistance means that the receptors on your cells that are receptors for insulin are no longer sensitive to the insulin. So your pancreas is having to secrete a ton more insulin to be able to get the receptors to actually respond and open up and allow the, allow for more glucose to be stored in the cells. So you end up having, it's kind of like if you think about trying to pack a suitcase too full of clothes. So you've got this suitcase and you keep trying to shove more clothes into it, and you're trying to like sit on it and get an extra person to sit on it to get it to where you can actually close it and latch it. And that's what's happening with insulin resistance. The cells you're not able to get any more blood sugar into the cells because you don't have the sensitivity to the insulin that's circulating. So you're having to get more and more insulin to be able to get the blood sugar into the cells, or to get the clothing into the suitcase, as in my analogy. And so when we have high insulin, so insulin resistance means that we're going to have high insulin levels circulating all the time. And so a fasting insulin level is a really good test to ask your doctor for, and it's not generally done. It's very easy to get done. You could get it done with any other lab work that you're having done, but they don't often run it. And so just knowing your glucose level is not enough, because you might have a normal glucose level on your lab work, but it could be requiring a lot of insulin to get it there, which means you have insulin resistance. That's not good, because insulin resistance, as you can see here, increases aches and pains, increases weight gain, increases blood pressure, increases cholesterol, mood changes. And actually there's an article I read that says that insulin resistance creates you end up having twice the risk for depression. So double the risk of depression when you have insulin resistance. So if you have this body type and you are depressed, or you've been starting to get more and more depressed, or having a lot of irritability and unstable mood, it could very likely be associated with high insulin. And this is correctable. This is something that you can eliminate. So it also increases aging and cancer risk, hormone imbalances, as we talked about with the insulin, and low libido. All of these things can go away with correcting the insulin resistance, which is something, again, this is a main hallmark of what I do in my program. Okay. So the ovarian body type, what do we need to be looking at? So sex hormone balance is off. So the ovaries are either tapped out, they're just not producing as much. And so if that's happening, the adrenal glands are having to kind of take up the slack. And so in many cases, we can end up having some overlap where we have the ovarian body type, but then all of a sudden we also have adrenals getting tapped out, because now they're trying to make up for the ovaries not producing as much. And so we can end up having symptoms and signs of both types. So when we have our sex hormones, the DHEA, when that is off, when we have insulin resistance, then we end up having this ovarian body type, and that insulin resistance is going to lead to a lot of other problems. So what do we need to do? So for this body type, there are recommendations to actually, this is kind of the other side of the coin from the adrenal body type. So this body type gets a lot of benefit from high intensity interval training a couple times per week. And then that would be in combination with 30 minutes of moderate level cardio 4 to 6 times per week. So you might do 4 days where you go out and get like a 30 or 40-minute walk, and then 2 days a week you do high intensity interval training. And there's tons of different videos on YouTube. You can go on YouTube and you can type in 10-minute HIIT training, beginner level, or 15-minute HIIT training, no equipment needed. I mean, you can type in anything and there's thousands of videos. And so you don't need to go to a gym. You don't need to spend a ton of money. You can literally do HIIT training in your living room with no equipment needed in 10 to 20 minutes. It's really that accessible. And type in beginner. You don't have to go right to the super crazy hard workouts. Strength training. So strength training, you know, muscle is the currency of longevity. So we really do want to be thinking about longevity here as well, not just losing weight, but we want to think about how are we setting ourselves up to age? How are we setting ourselves up to experience the last 10 years of our life? So, so strength training, you can do strength training 3 days a week, get about 8 to 10 different muscle groups. This is also something that you can find tons of resources for on YouTube. As a exercise physiologist, that's part of what I help my clients with in my program. When they don't have a lot of experience with exercise, I help them find resources and help them set up a plan that will work for them. You really want to avoid endocrine disruptors. So they are everywhere. We have to be really, really diligent here. So you need to be not drinking out of plastic bottles. I know this can be difficult. There you go get water at the store and almost everything's stored in plastic. So please find a metal or glass water container that you just always have with you. And if you stop somewhere, just see if they have like water on tap instead of going and buying water that's been sitting in plastic. Try to take filtered water with you. Try to think ahead, bring water from home. Try to avoid pesticides. Try to get organic food. Pesticides can have endocrine disruptors. Even stuff that's in our tap water. I use a Berkey water filter in my home, and if anyone's interested, I can give you a link for Berkey water filters, their charcoal water filter, and I also have the fluoride filter on mine. Canned foods can have stuff in them that some BPA type stuff that can cause disruption, different cleaning products. You can go to EWG, this stands for environmentalworkinggroup.org, and you can find out what their recommendations are for cleaning products, for beauty products, all kinds of things. They rate all kinds of different products, all different brands, and they tell you what their top recommendations are. So it's a great resource. Dietary considerations. So for this body type, a wide variety of organic fruits and veggies, focusing on cruciferous. So getting a lot of like the broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, arugula, cabbage. Those are all great. Again, pre and probiotics. We really want to take care of our microbiome. This cannot be ignored in whatever your health issue is, whatever your wellness goals are. Your microbiome is a key component of all of it. So you really want to be thinking about a good probiotic. I can make recommendations if you have questions. Prebiotics would be the things that feed your bugs. So prebiotics are in the alliums, like garlic and onion. They're in Jerusalem artichokes, bamboo shoots, flax. There's lots of different sources of prebiotics just in our a lot of the day-to-day foods. Intermittent fasting is a great thing to do in this body type. I really encourage intermittent fasting for this group. Lean proteins, really trying to stay away from fatty cuts of meat. Limit soy. Soy can be an endocrine disruptor. Healthy fats. really trying to get fats from food rather than from oils. You really want to avoid fried food. Better to get fat from whole foods like nuts and seeds and avocados and olives. And then limiting carbs, especially grains. So I really encourage this group to avoid pasta, avoid bread, try not to eat a lot of rice, oatmeal is not a good choice in this group. Really, those are going to really be spiking your blood sugar, which is then going to cause that insulin spike. Okay, so the thyroid body type. So this body type is going to be where you're not necessarily seeing weight gain in specific areas. You're rather seeing it kind of throughout the body. So it's kind of widespread. You're going to see it in the arms, the neck, the chest, the belly, the buttocks, the thighs, the calves, very widespread. And we call it the thyroid body type, but it's not necessarily that there's something wrong with the thyroid. It's just that the thyroid is responding to a lot of other things that are going on. So the thyroid's responding to what's happening with the adrenals. It's responding to what's happening with the ovaries. So the thyroid's getting a lot of attention because it's having to kind of adjust and flex to everything else that's happening in the body. So we want to be really looking at what can be affecting the thyroid and what can be causing it to maybe be trying to overproduce. And then in some cases, then we end up getting, it can either be overproducing or underproducing. In cases where it's underproducing, often that's an autoimmune condition. So when we have a hypothyroid, that's an underactive thyroid, and that can be Hashimoto's related, which is an autoimmune condition. That's a whole nother thing where it actually is a thyroid condition, and we really need to look at what do we need to do to heal the gut and to really address that specifically. But in this case, when we have a thyroid body type, if we don't have Hashimoto's or it hasn't been diagnosed, what are the things that we need to be looking at and being aware of? And then what are the things that we can do to maybe correct some of the things that are happening that are causing the thyroid to be having to work extra hard. So with the thyroid body type, you could have a lot of fatigue, generalized unexplained weight gain, again, general throughout the body, having cold intolerance, brittle nails or vertical ridges, stiff, dry hair, puffiness around the eyes, poor short-term memory and focus, brain fog, depression, dry skin, cravings for simple carbs, high cholesterol, loss of libido, dry, cracked heels. Whoops. Sorry about that. Jumped way ahead. Oh my goodness. Why is it doing this? There we go. Low motivation, constipation, thinning of the outer third of the eyebrow. So the outer third starts to get very thin and starts to disappear. Enlargement of the thyroid. So when it's responding to a lot of other things that are happening around it, so it's responding to adrenal dysfunction or ovarian issues, it can be starting to get enlarged because it's trying to produce extra thyroid hormone. And so as it becomes enlarged, it can actually press up against your vocal cords. So people a lot of times will start noticing that their voice is getting a little bit hoarse. And they also might notice that they have pain or difficulties swallowing pills. And that could be the thyroid. Oh my goodness, I'm really struggling with my keypad. That could be an indication that the thyroid gland is getting enlarged. And just having your doctor run a thyroid lab is not enough. I have a client who I just talked to recently where she noticed a bulge on her thyroid, and she went in to see her doctor, and the doctor said, yeah, you do. Like that's definitely looks kind of like a goiter starting to happen. So let's run a thyroid lab and see what we see. Well, her thyroid lab came back normal. And so the doctor's like, well, I think, your thyroid looks fine. Your lab levels are normal. So let's just watch it. So she ended up going and finding a functional medicine doctor that diagnosed her with Graves' disease and is giving her a whole plan to treat it. So it just really shows you like not, you know, the Western medicine model is great for some things, like they really are, they definitely have their place, and I'm not trying to point fingers, but there are certain things where their level of expertise kind of runs out, and you really need to work with someone in the functional medicine space that is trained to kind of go below the surface and be able to really identify these things and know what's normal and what's not normal. So it's, you know, it's not just like, oh, this lab is in the normal range, you must be fine. No, that's not okay. And that happens all the time in lots of different areas, lots of different areas in the body. So, okay. So having a morning headache that tends to get better as the day goes on. Darn it. And then having a hard time starting and completing tasks. So these are all common symptoms that your thyroid is having a hard time for whatever reason. So if you can check off a bunch of these, then this is an important thing to consider and to really want to take a little deeper dive to see what could be going on. So with the thyroid, we really need to also look at our sleep, because if we're chronically underslept, that's also going to affect the thyroid. So different hormones are affected by our quality of sleep. So when we get enough sleep, that's going to cause us to have lower ghrelin levels, which give us a nice, normal, steady appetite during the day. And it's also going to allow us to have higher leptin, which makes us feel more satiated after a meal. So we want to have low and well-regulated ghrelin levels so that we don't feel hungry all day. And we want to have higher leptin levels so that we can eat a meal and feel like, okay, I'm full, I'm done. If you are not getting enough sleep, and I'm sure many of you can relate to this, and I know I for sure can, if you're not getting good sleep, your ghrelin levels will be higher during the day, which makes you just be like, you're just like grazing all day. You're just like, oh my God, I need to keep eating. I cannot satisfy myself. I cannot get full. I just feel like I'm just constantly hungry, and your leptin levels will be lower. So you're not going to feel as full after a meal. You're going to feel like you're still hungry. You need seconds, you need thirds, you need dessert, you need another snack. This is a terrible cycle to get into, because when you graze like that all day, then you're going to have, you're really contributing to higher blood sugar levels, which are going to contribute to higher insulin levels. And this is going to push you into that the insulin resistance, which is going to then affect your sex hormones. And then that's also going to circle back around and affect your thyroid. So it's this really nasty cycle that we get into. And one of the first things we can do to break the cycle is get enough and good quality sleep. I cannot emphasize this enough. It is so, so, so important. I would say if you had to weight the importance of sleep versus exercise, sleep would weight heavier. So if you have to choose between sleep or exercise, get sleep. We need it. We need to get adequate sleep for so many functions in our body, so many things in our body, so many systems are reliant on us getting a good quality 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Okay, other thyroid body type considerations. So frequent small bouts of movement. So we don't want to be doing like big, long pushes. You don't want to be going and doing like 3 or 4 hours of exercise at one time. That's really going to overtax your system. Strength and flexibility, a few days a week. Again, muscle is the currency of longevity, and having good muscle is going to help also regulate our insulin levels. Getting outside, I cannot emphasize enough how important natural light is to all of our systems. Natural light every day, getting up and ideally seeing the sun rise, getting out during peak sunrise, maybe even getting out as the sun is setting. Those things can all really affect our hormone levels. And when we are balanced in our other hormones, then that's going to be less taxing on our thyroid, because our thyroid's not going to sense all of these other things being off. Magnesium. So if you're not taking a magnesium supplement, most of us are deficient in magnesium and should be on a supplement. Other supplements that can be effective, and I would, I'm not prescribing, I'm not telling you, you absolutely should take these. You should talk to a healthcare provider, but vitamin D, B6, zinc, selenium, and iodine can all be really helpful for thyroid health. Dietary considerations, again, organic, varied fruits and veggies, getting that rainbow on your plate. Intermittent fasting is also good in this group. Lean proteins, again, limit carbs, especially grains, get plenty of protein. You might consider an autoimmune protocol, limiting nightshades, legumes, and grains. So this is going back to if you have an autoimmune thyroid condition, and it is quite common. I think 90% of all hypoactive thyroid conditions are autoimmune related, which means autoimmune means that your immune system is attacking your own body tissue. And this oftentimes happens because we have issues at the gut level. 75% of our immune system is circulating right inside our gut wall. And so if our gut is not healthy, that's going to cause our immune system to go haywire. And that's where we can end up with autoimmune conditions. So we really want to look at the gut, and we want to get rid of all things that can contribute to gut issues. If you're going to have cruciferous, you want to cook the cruciferous veggies. And you want to potentially limit dairy. This could be a group where dairy could be contributing to some intolerances and gut issues. Okay, so what if you don't really know for sure which body type you are? So what if you can check several boxes in each of those categories? Because like I said, there's overlap there. Nothing is in isolation. And that is a key component and principle in the functional medicine space, is that nothing is in isolation. There's overlap in all areas. So you might be able to check things in each of those body types. And so I have a questionnaire that I am offering to have you do for free. Normally I charge $149 for this, to do this questionnaire and to spend an hour with me reviewing it and going over the results, but I'm offering this for free. So with this questionnaire, we get a report that looks like this. So it breaks down each of these different body systems. So it tells you where your areas of priority are between upper GI, lower GI, small intestine, large intestine, all these different, I'm not going to go through all of them, but all these different systems. And so we can look and say, oh, okay, so adrenal is a high priority. So you either have high cortisol or you are underproducing cortisol. There's an issue with vitamin need and sugar handling. So we really need to look at how do we get your blood sugars balanced. So this is a really nice way to look and see, what are going to be the priority issues for you. So if you would like to do this questionnaire, get your phone out and scan this QR code, and it'll take you to where you can schedule a root cause assessment. You're going to use the coupon code root cause, as you see here on the slide, all one word. And you will be able to schedule this assessment and get the questionnaire sent to you and have it all for free. So this is a great opportunity. I really encourage you to do this so that you can dive into what could be going on with you specifically in your own specific ecosystem. So if you are not sure about doing the questionnaire, maybe it feels like you just don't have the bandwidth for that, or you just it's just not something that you are ready to do right now. But you're interested in knowing how I help people achieve their health, wellness, and weight loss goals, you can scan this code on this page and just set up a free discovery call with me. You don't have to fill out the questionnaire is fairly lengthy because it really dives deep into what all is going on with you. If you just don't have time for that, but you would like to have a 20 to 30-minute chat with me to talk about what I do and how I help people achieve their health and wellness goals. And I've had many people tell me, like, this is the first program that has worked for me. This is the only thing that has worked. I have done Noom, I have done Weight Watchers, I have done Optivia, I've done all these different things. This is the first program that actually makes sense to me. It's the first program that works for me. I finally feel like I can trust myself again. I finally feel like I can trust my body again. So if you're interested in knowing how that happens and how I help people with that, I'm more than happy to get on a free discovery call with you. So just scan this QR code that you see here on this page, and that will take you to setting up a discovery call. And with that, I would take questions, but I don't know that there's anyone in the Zoom room. So what I would have you do is just go ahead and direct message me on Facebook any questions that you have about any of the things that I talked about today, or anything else health and wellness related. Or you can go to my website, heartwellnesscoaching.com, or you can contact me through email at Angie@heartwellnesscoaching.com. Okay, so that is the end of the presentation. So if you hung out with me on Facebook for this last hour, I really appreciate you joining me. And if you're catching the replay, I would love for you to type in replay. I will be posting the video. I don't know if it will replay on Facebook, but I will be posting the replay or the recording. So anyway, thank you for hanging out with me. Like I said, if you have any questions, please reach out, and I hope to chat with you soon. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your evening.